August 25, 1944. Cherbourg, France. 11:15 hours. Generalmajor Dietrich von Choltitz, 49, newly appointed military governor of Paris, examined captured American supply depot maps in a bunker near the fallen port. The maps showed supply routes, depot locations, truck availability, fuel reserves, everything the Wehrmacht desperately needed intelligence on. What von Choltitz saw made him reach for his phone to Berlin, not because the intelligence revealed American weakness, because it revealed something far more disturbing. The scale of American logistics operation exceeded anything German planning had considered possible. The Americans weren't just supplying an army. They'd created an industrial supply system operating on European soil. The numbers on these maps represented capability Germany couldn't match if they had 10 years and unlimited resources. What Wehrmacht officers learned from studying American logistics that summer would convince many of them that military victory was impossible, not because German soldiers couldn't fight, because German logistics couldn't sustain fighting against an enemy who could move 800,000 tons of supplies per month across an ocean and hundreds of miles inland. By August 1944, the Allied advance across France had created a logistics crisis and demonstrated logistics capability simultaneously. The crisis came from speed of advance. German military planners expected deliberate Allied offensives constrained by supply limitations. Instead, Patton's Third Army raced east faster than supply lines could keep pace. The capability came from how Americans solved the problem through systematic industrial application. German logistics doctrine was shaped by European railroad networks and relatively short supply distances. Wehrmacht forces in France relied primarily on French railways to move supplies from Germany. Motor transport supplemented rail but wasn't the primary system. This approach worked adequately when Germany controlled the rail network and distances were manageable. It collapsed when Allied bombing destroyed rail infrastructure and advancing armies outran rail repair capabilities. American logistics doctrine was built on motor transport from its foundation. The U.S. Army developed the Red Ball Express, a dedicated truck convoy system in late August 1944 to supply rapidly advancing forces. The express ran one-way routes from Normandy beaches to forward depots. Trucks traveled continuously, often driven 20 hours per day by rotating crews. At its peak, Red Ball operated 5,958 trucks carrying 12,500 tons of supplies daily. But Red Ball was just the visible element of a much larger logistics system. Behind it stood the arsenal of democracy producing war materials in quantities that staggered German analysts. Liberty ships, mass-produced cargo vessels, crossed the Atlantic carrying tanks, trucks, ammunition, food, fuel. The United States launched 2,110 Liberty ships during the war, each capable of carrying 10,000 tons of cargo. American shipyards produced these vessels faster than German U-boats could sink them. The mathematics of industrial capacity decided logistics superiority before the war began. American automobile production in 1941 was 3.8 million vehicles. Germany produced 333,000. When both nations converted production to military vehicles, America maintained overwhelming advantage. The U.S. produced 2.4 million military trucks during the war. Germany produced 346,000. This 10-to-1 disparity meant American forces operated with motor transport abundance while German forces operated with chronic vehicle shortages. Oberst Günther Blumentritt, Chief of Staff to Field Marshal von Rundstedt, examined American logistics capabilities in September 1944 as Allied forces approached Germany's frontier. His staff analysis, recovered from German archives after the war, provided brutally honest assessment. American logistics operation in France demonstrates industrial capacity we cannot match. Their ability to transport 800,000 tons monthly from ships to frontline units, often over distances exceeding 600 kilometers, reveals systematic planning and execution we lack resources to replicate. Each American division receives approximately 650 tons of supplies daily. We provide our divisions 200 tons daily when rail transport functions normally, less when Allied aircraft interdict our lines. This disparity grants Americans operational tempo we cannot sustain. The report continued with specific observations. American fuel logistics alone exceeded total German logistics capability. An American armored division consumed 60,000 gallons of fuel daily during active operations. American logistics delivered this fuel with 85% reliability. German logistics struggled to deliver 20,000 gallons daily to comparable formations due to fuel shortages, transport limitations, and Allied interdiction. The fuel disparity cascaded through all operations. American tanks and trucks operated without fuel constraints. Attacks proceeded when tactically advantageous rather than when fuel permitted. German formations rationed fuel constantly. Attacks were delayed or cancelled when fuel didn't arrive. Tanks sat immobile despite being combat-ready. The phrase "sitting ducks waiting for gasoline" appeared in multiple German unit reports from late 1944. Food logistics revealed similar patterns. American soldiers received approximately 4,000 calories daily, including fresh meat, vegetables, bread, dessert. Field kitchens operated within miles of front lines, using supplies delivered by truck daily. German soldiers received 2,500 to 3,000 calories, often from preserved or dehydrated rations. Fresh food was luxury rarely available. The nutritional difference affected combat effectiveness. Well-fed soldiers have higher morale, better health, greater endurance than undernourished soldiers. Ammunition logistics determined combat capability most directly. American artillery units fired ammunition without constraint when targets presented themselves. German artillery commanders calculated ammunition expenditure carefully, rationing shells based on uncertain resupply. At the Battle of the Bulge in December 1944, initial German artillery bombardments expended ammunition rapidly to achieve surprise and shock. Within 3 days, ammunition shortages forced German artillery into defensive conservation mode. American artillery increased fire throughout the battle as supply convoys brought forward massive ammunition reserves. The systemic difference went beyond quantity to include methodology. American logistics emphasized forward stockpiling. Supply depots advanced behind combat formations continuously, maintaining relatively short supply distances. German logistics emphasized centralized depot systems far behind lines, requiring long, vulnerable supply routes. American supply officers calculated requirements based on actual unit consumption, reported through radio communications daily. German supply officers calculated requirements based on theoretical planning figures often disconnected from reality. American logistics personnel received extensive training in supply management, inventory control, and maintenance procedures. The U.S. Army operated logistics like a business because many logistics officers had civilian business management experience. They applied industrial efficiency methods to military supply chains. German logistics personnel were often combat soldiers assigned to supply duties with minimal specialized training. The mechanical reliability of American vehicles multiplied logistics advantages. The GMC CCKW 6x6 truck, nicknamed Jimmy, was the Red Ball Express workhorse. Simple design, reliable engine, easy maintenance. Drivers with basic mechanical training could perform field repairs. The truck operated 20,000 miles between major overhauls. German logistics vehicles were a diverse collection of captured, requisitioned, and purpose-built vehicles from multiple nations. Maintenance required different spare parts for different vehicles. Mechanics needed expertise across numerous systems. Operational readiness of German motor transport rarely exceeded 60%. American motor transport operational readiness consistently exceeded 90%. General Lieutenant Hans Speidel, Chief of Staff to Field Marshal Rommel during Normandy campaign, wrote in his post-war memoirs about observing American logistics from captured vantage points. We watched American truck convoys stretching 10, 15, 20 kilometers, driving continuously toward front lines. Our intelligence estimated Americans moved 20,000 vehicles daily through Normandy road network. This exceeded total vehicles available to our entire Western Front forces. We understood then that matching American material capacity was impossible. Our survival depended on tactical excellence compensating for material disadvantage. But excellence has limits when opponent possesses 10 times your supplies and unlimited replacements. The psychological impact on German soldiers was significant. American troops knew supplies arrived reliably. If ammunition ran low, resupply came within hours. If a vehicle broke down, recovery and replacement happened quickly. This knowledge supported aggressive tactics and reduced anxiety about supplies. German troops operated with constant supply uncertainty. Would ammunition arrive? Would fuel be available? Would food rations reach forward positions? This uncertainty forced conservative tactics and created perpetual anxiety. The Allied logistics achievement extended beyond combat supplies to include maintenance, medical care, and recreation. American forces established maintenance facilities behind lines capable of major vehicle and equipment repairs. Damaged tanks were recovered, repaired, returned to service within days. German forces often abandoned damaged equipment due to inability to recover and repair it. American field hospitals provided advanced medical care close to front lines, reducing death rates from wounds. German medical facilities operated under resource constraints that increased mortality. American forces rotated units from combat for rest and recreation. German forces kept units in line until destroyed or rendered combat ineffective. The scale of American logistics infrastructure in Europe by autumn 1944 was staggering. Over 100 supply depots operated across France. Each depot employed hundreds of soldiers and civilians managing thousands of tons of materiel. Port facilities at Cherbourg, Le Havre, Marseille, and Antwerp handled millions of tons of cargo monthly. Pipeline networks delivered fuel directly from ports to forward areas, reducing truck transport requirements. Communications networks allowed real-time coordination of supply movements. A Wehrmacht intelligence report from October 1944 attempted to assess American logistics vulnerabilities. The report, signed by Generalmajor Walter Warlimont, concluded bleakly, "American logistics system is so large and redundant that no single point of failure exists. Destroying one supply depot merely redirects supplies through alternate depots. Interdicting one supply route shifts traffic to parallel routes. Sinking cargo ships in Atlantic has minimal impact because replacement ships arrive faster than losses accumulate. Americans have industrialized logistics to a degree where military interdiction cannot disrupt their operations significantly. Only strategic bombing of American homeland industry could degrade their logistics, which remains impossible given current Luftwaffe capabilities." The report recommended accepting American logistics superiority as unchangeable reality and adapting German tactics accordingly. But adaptation had limits. Tactics cannot overcome complete supply inadequacy. By late 1944, German forces faced not just supply shortages, but supply collapse. The Ardennes offensive in December 1944 was predicated on capturing American fuel supplies because German logistics couldn't provide sufficient fuel for the operation. This dependency on capturing enemy supplies indicated how thoroughly German logistics had deteriorated. After the war, German generals reflected on logistics' impact with consistent conclusion. They'd underestimated American industrial capacity and organizational capability. Generaloberst Heinz Guderian, in his 1951 memoirs, wrote, "We understood American industrial production exceeded ours substantially, but we failed to comprehend how effectively they applied that production to military logistics. Their ability to project massive supply capacity across oceans and maintain it through hundreds of kilometers showed organizational mastery equal to their industrial capacity. In retrospect, attempting to compete with this combination was futile. We should have recognized this earlier and pursued strategy acknowledging our logistics limitations." The lessons from American World War II logistics shaped modern military doctrine permanently. Every military academy worldwide teaches logistics as warfare fundamentally. The principle is clear. Combat effectiveness depends absolutely on logistics capability. The best soldiers, tanks, and tactics are worthless without ammunition, fuel, and food to sustain operations. Modern militaries dedicate substantial resources to logistics training, planning, and execution. The idea that logistics is secondary to combat operations died in 1944 when Wehrmacht forces watched American supply convoys roll past daily in numbers German logistics could never match. Today, at the Army Logistics University at Fort Lee, Virginia, students study American World War II logistics as foundational doctrine. The Red Ball Express, Liberty ships, and supply depot operations are analyzed not as history, but as case studies in effective logistics organization. The course emphasizes systematic planning, redundant capabilities, and integration of civilian industrial capacity into military supply chains. A teaching principle at Fort Lee states, "Logistics determines what's possible. Strategy and tactics operate within logistics constraints. Expanding logistics capacity expands operational possibilities. Neglecting logistics limits all other capabilities." This principle derives directly from World War II experience when American logistics expanded operational possibilities continuously while German logistics contracted them relentlessly. At the Smithsonian National Museum of American History, a GMC CCKW truck, part of the Red Ball Express, is displayed with information explaining its role. Veterans visiting often recount stories of supply convoys, depot operations, and logistics miracles that kept combat units operational. A common theme emerges. Logistics was unglamorous, unrecognized, absolutely essential. Without those truck drivers, supply clerks, and depot workers, combat operations would have stopped regardless of soldier courage or tactical brilliance. A museum visitor comment from 2019, written by a retired Army officer, reflects modern understanding. "I commanded combat operations in Iraq and Afghanistan. My greatest constraint was never enemy capability. It was always logistics. Could we sustain operations at planned tempo? Did we have supplies forward positioned? Was transportation available? These questions determined what missions we could execute. My grandfather drove trucks for Red Ball Express. He never saw combat, but his contribution enabled combat operations for thousands of soldiers. Modern officers understand this completely. World War II taught us that logistics isn't support for combat. Logistics enables combat. Without it, armies are armed mobs that run out of bullets. The Wehrmacht learned this lesson catastrophically. Germany entered the war with confidence in tactical excellence, superior weapons, and soldier quality. These advantages were real, but they operated within logistics constraints that doomed Germany when facing opponents with superior logistics capacity. By 1944, German soldiers fought heroically with insufficient ammunition, inadequate food, and chronic fuel shortages. American soldiers fought adequately with unlimited ammunition, excellent food, and fuel abundance. Material abundance beat tactical excellence consistently. The broader lesson extends beyond military applications. Organizations competing in any field must build logistics and supply chain capabilities proportional to their ambitions. A brilliant business strategy fails without supply chains to deliver products. An innovative product fails without distribution logistics to reach customers. Excellence in core competencies is necessary but insufficient. Excellence in supporting logistics is equally critical. Germany had excellent soldiers. America had excellent logistics. In sustained competition, logistics determined outcomes more than combat performance. This remains true today in business, in military operations, in any endeavor requiring sustained performance over time. Build your supply chains. Invest in logistics. Make support operations excellent. Then your frontline operations can succeed. Neglect logistics and frontline excellence becomes irrelevant when supplies run out. The numbers told the story Wehrmacht officers couldn't deny. America moved 800,000 tons monthly to European theater. Germany moved 150,000 tons monthly to all fronts combined. When opponent has 5 times your logistics capacity, battlefield tactics matter less than logistic mathematics. Von Choltitz understood this when he examined those supply maps. Many German commanders understood it by late 1944, but understanding came too late. By then, logistics disparity was insurmountable. The war was decided not by battlefield courage, but by supply convoy efficiency. In logistics, as in so much of war, Overwhelming capacity beats desperate efficiency. America had overwhelming capacity. Germany had desperate efficiency. Capacity won.